I'm a little bit late making this video. I asked on Instagram if you guys wanted me to make it and I got some responses that said yes. It's kind of old news now because I was affected by the drone attack that happened in London right before Christmas. If you guys don't know, drones came into the airspace at London Gatwick Airport and I was flying from London Gatwick Airport the day after it got locked down. And obviously this being right before Christmas, a lot of people were traveling. I was flying the day it opened. I thought this is gonna be fine, like nothing's gonna happen. It's gonna get sorted before I fly tomorrow. And then the night before, I was at my friend's house and I checked my flight status because they were still saying like don't travel to the airport before checking the status of your flight with your airline. And I checked and it said that it was an hour delayed, estimated to be over an hour delayed, which meant that I would miss my second flight from Oslo. So at that point I was like, oh no. A lot of people know this, but for me 2018 was a really difficult year and I had a lot of challenging things that happened and I was just really like ready to go home. I had never actually been away from my friends and my family for that long because I didn't get to go home like during the summer or anything, so I was just so excited to go home and like hug my parents. I was like, I need this. But I was like, it's fine, I'll reschedule my second flight and everything will be okay. Can you see where this is going? So when I got home that night, I called Norwegian customer service, waited in queue for 90 minutes. I am not exaggerating. This is not a surprise, of course. The only thing that could make this worse was that it was like Katie Malua? Katie Malua. Is that how you say her name? The whole time. I'm pretty open to a lot of different music, but for some reason I just don't like her music, and especially if you're forced to listen to the same thing for like 90 minutes and it was like past midnight, so I couldn't put my phone on speaker. Like I literally had to listen to it like this. I almost went crazy. When someone finally picked up the phone, I kind of just didn't believe it. I was like, oh, this is actually a real person. I was like, hello? I must have sounded so silly, but I managed to reschedule my flight to a later flight. The whole problem here that I was worried about was that my two first flights were with Norwegian and my third flight to get to my hometown. I'm from a very small town. Domestic travel in Norway is really difficult, so I need to get 3 flights to get home. When I woke up that morning, obviously the first thing I did was to check like the Gatwick airport status, and the first like the morning flights had taken off. The airport was officially, you know, open, so I actually like cried a little bit, or like shed a few happy tears. If you guys don't know me, I cry at everything. Checked the status of my flight. It was delayed even more, 2 more hours or something, so I would miss my flight from Oslo again. I would need to reschedule it again, but I didn't have that many options because I needed to make my third flight, which was with a different airline, so if I didn't make it, it wasn't Norwegian's responsibility. That was why like I was so worried, because if I missed that flight, everything was sold out for the rest of the night, for like Saturday as well. I was traveling on a Friday, so I was screwed if I couldn't make that flight. So that's why I was so worried, because if it was all like Norwegian, they would like sort out everything for me, right? But it wasn't. Went to the airport on the train, shed a little few worried tears. Got to the airport, chaos. People were just sitting everywhere like waiting for like their flights to open, because when I got there I managed to like check in, I was fine, but I couldn't drop my bag because they wouldn't let us do that until our flight was confirmed, because they needed to get the, you know, aircrafts there obviously, because they didn't have like the planes hadn't been able to land. So I was just stood there waiting, literally like in the wait. So many people ran over me with their suitcases. Gatwick isn't that small, but when you fit like 2-3 day loads of people into one day it gets really full. Finally was allowed to drop my bag, and then I went in line for like Norwegian customer service, whatever, like airport services, to reschedule my second flight. Waited for like half an hour maybe in line. That was actually not as bad as I thought it would be. Went through security, had breakfast finally at like 1, and my flight said that info would be given at like 1, then it said would be given at like 1:10 or whatever, and then it said will be given at 1:15, and I was like, it's supposed to leave at like 1:45. If it doesn't leave at 1:45, I will not make my second flight. It has been rescheduled, but it's been rescheduled to the latest possible flight. I cannot, like, this flight needs to leave on time, and it won't. Finally, we were given a gate. Got there, we waited for like at least 30 minutes even to get the plane to the gate. Like when we got there was some other like plane from a different airline there, and when I saw that I was like, we're not leaving at 1:45. I was clinging onto the like very small hope, very unrealistic hope that we would. We left at least 45 minutes after the like estimated time. It might have been more actually. We sat on the plane for a while as well, and then I asked the stewardess. I was like, hey, like, so this plane lands like 10 minutes before my next flight. Is there any way we can like make that plane like wait or something? Is there anything we can do to make sure I get on that flight, because I really need to get on that flight. Rescheduling isn't really an option for me. And she was literally just like, you just have to go to the help desk when we land. Not helpful. And then over the speakers, like later they were like, oh, so everyone on this flight has been rescheduled to like a later flight, and it was like at like 8:30, and my flight from Trondheim, which I really needed to make, was at like 7:30. Was I going to make that flight? No, I wasn't even gonna leave Oslo before that flight took off. So I asked a different stewardess like, hey, I really need to make that flight. I've been rescheduled. Is there any chance I can still run for that flight and see if I can make it? Like, will they let me on? And she was like, yeah, just do what you think is best for you. So I was like, I'm a run. Like, that is the best thing for me. But I was really upset. The girl next to me actually noticed, and she was like, are you okay? And then she started talking to me. I don't even know her name, but like, girl, thank you for making my day so much better. It was really nice just to have someone to talk to. And I know, like, I'm not trying to pretend that this is the worst thing that could happen in the whole world, but it was just like, I was so like stressed, and I had such a bad year. I just needed to get home for Christmas, you know, and I was so worried that I wouldn't be able to get home. And I only had like 4 hours sleep, you know, so I was like extra emotional. So we landed, and there was a freaking like terminal bus thing that we had to take. Bus took forever. Fortunately, my second flight was delayed, so I was like, I might still make this. Ran through like passport, and I just got to this place, and I was like, how do I get out of international? I need to get to like domestic flights. And he was like, calm down. I was so out of breath, like I literally like could not breathe. I was so like, oh my god, I was such a mess. He was like an old guy, and he was like, oh, calm down, like you'll be fine. What's your flight? And I said the flight number to him, to Trondheim, and he was like, oh, like go to this gate, like just, you really have to hurry. I ran to the gate. It was the wrong gate. He gave me the wrong gate. I'm not like holding anything against him. He was just trying to help. He really wanted to help me. It was 2 flights going to Trondheim with almost the same flight number with 10 minutes between them. So it was really easy to make that mistake. Got to the gate, the guy was like, hey, Marina. And I was like, I'm not Marina. He was waiting for one passenger whose name was Marina. I was not Marina. I did not get on that plane. So then he said something in his like walkie-talkie. He was like, hey, like there's a person coming for this flight, like later on, whatever. I ran there, could barely run. I was so tired. Got there, the guy was like, we've disconnected the thing, you can't get on. And I was like, oh, but they told me like I was sent to the wrong gate, like they told me I could just to go here, like can I not get on this plane? And he like literally just printed out the new ticket for me, like the ticket for the later flight that I didn't want, and he just left. I was already crying so much when I was talking to him, because I realized like I'm not gonna make it on this flight. I'm not gonna make my 3rd flight. I'm not embarrassed about this, because I think people understood like the situation I was in, and also I don't know those people. I was crying my eyes out at the like desk of like at that gate. I was just crying and crying for like 20 minutes, and I was like watching the plane just like leave. At that point I was kind of like, now the hope is gone, like hope is lost, you know, like I don't know what to do. I literally just like sat on the floor in like Oslo airport, like just crying and crying for like an hour. Then I thought I would go and, you know, talk to the service desk for like the airline that I was flying with next, because I was gonna ask like, is there anything you can do? She gave me the number to like their customer service. I couldn't call them because I don't have a Norwegian number. I tried to go in the live chat, that didn't work. So my dad actually called the like customer service. He was like, is there anything you do, like please help? So they put me on like the waiting list for like a flight to another airport in my district, because there was no other flights to my hometown like that day or the next day. So they were like, okay, we're gonna try this before we like see what we can do, because thankfully I had a full flex ticket. It's the kind of ticket that you can like rebook and like reschedule without having to pay for it and stuff like that. So I got on my 2nd flight, landed in Trondheim, did not get my suitcase. I did not expect to get my suitcase. I had no idea where my suitcase was, but at that point I was like, guys, you're not getting your presents, you're just getting me, I'm your present. I went to the desk thing, and I was like, hey, like, so my dad called and I was put in like a waiting list. So I went to the gate. I was like, hey, so this is my story. Can I get on this plane? He was like, let me just board the plane and we'll see. And then another flight with 5 people who were going on this plane was delayed for like over an hour, so they couldn't make it to the plane. So I got a seat. I was like, you saved Christmas, thank you so much. I was so happy. I was like crying, like I went on the plane and I was like crying, like happy tears. It was such a relief. It wasn't like ideal, of course. I wanted to fly to my hometown, but like my parents came and picked me up. It's like a 2-hour drive each way, so it's the best worst case scenario, if that makes sense. Got home, I got my suitcase on Christmas Eve, which was like 3 days later. People who know me know that I have very bad luck when it comes to traveling. So when I went back, I landed in London at like 11:30 with a broken suitcase. Went to like every help desk, everything was closed. Do not fly that late because Gatwick airport closes before their flights close. You can't reach anyone. I tried everything. You can't. And I was like, oh, now I'm gonna have to go home and come back like in the morning. There were no trains running. I couldn't find where to take the bus from. I've never taken the bus from there. I've only taken trains, and there were no trains on this day. And I also don't feel safe like just waiting, because I would have to change buses, right? And I was like, I'm not gonna just wait for a random bus at like 2, 3 in the morning, you know, alone. So what I did was I decided to wait till they opened at 4 a.m. At that point it was already like 1 a.m. and I was okay. I was talking to my friend Finn, who fortunately was awake and like helped me stay awake because I'm not a nighttime person. I had my Nintendo Switch, so I was talking to Finn and playing Breath of the Wild, and it was good. I stayed awake, talked to the people, I filled out a damage form. Nothing happened. They were like, oh yeah, you just gotta go home and we'll like get back to you in like a week or 2. I was like, so I actually took this suitcase home. 2 out of the 4 wheels were just completely like gone. The handle was also broken, so it was really hard to transport the suitcase. So I was like, how am I gonna get this home? The good thing about these things is that it makes you more like independent, or like strong, or like, what should I say, prepared for things. And you know that, oh, I can deal with this. I have been through worse, you know. All right, I'll see you soon. Keep up the good vibes.